Good morning to you, and thank you so much for finding time to be with us today. The show is Unfiltered, where we get to go behind the news that has been making headlines throughout this week. And there are some stories that we've been following for you, that of the Democratic Republic of Congo, that of the mediation process in Ethiopia, and some other stories that we've been looking at and paying attention to over the continent. So I shall bring you up to date, and we shall look at some of the stories that we've been looking at over the week. My name is Miriam Ogotu. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are tuned in and watching us from. So before we get into all of that, I would like to bring us up to date with the latest news headlines from across the continent of Africa. Charity begins at home, so we shall start with some leading newspapers from here in Nairobi, Kenya. Daily Nation, Raila cornered, that is the main headline. Athletics ban Kenyans to know fate next week. That is on page 2. MPs pick team to help anchor CDF in law. You'll find that on the back page. And Ruto out to revenge on IEBC 4, says Azimio. You'll find that on page 8. The Star newspaper. Uhuru to quit as Azimio chair or lose hefty perks. Sources say government inquiring if ex-president has resigned from Azimio. That story is on page 4 and 5, the main pictorial there. Raila vows fight back as tempers flare at IEBC hearing. The photo of Wiper boss Kalonzo Musyoka and Azimio leader Raila Odinga at Parliament buildings in Nairobi on Thursday. That is yesterday. DPP approves murder charges on Eastleigh's top cop Rashid, and this has elicited a lot of reaction from Kenyans because apparently Kenyans support the work he was doing as far as fighting the criminals from that Eastlands area is concerned. So the court of public opinion is that this cop should be celebrated, but that is not the case, as the Director of Public Prosecutions has approved murder charges against Eastleigh-based crime buster Ahmed Rashid. Rashid is known in Eastleigh and Mathare, Nairobi, for his modus operandi of addressing crime. He has managed to contain crime levels in the area, during which some locals complained he applied extrajudicial means. It's very interesting there. That story is on page 10. Okay, so that aside, let's look at some newspapers from across the continent this morning, and we start with a Daily Express. Suella vows to cut net migrant record of 504. I'm not sure where that is. These are papers from UK. I think I'll skip that and look for those from the continent this morning. I don't know if I have any. All right. I'm not sure if I have papers from the continent this morning. Oh, I think I do. Sorry for that. So the Namibian from Namibia, cheating hits SWAPO Congress. That is what we have. The Sun also from Namibia, all eyes on Omusati and Ohangwena. That's what we have. The Punch from Nigeria, beware of fraud. Opposition wants INEC, that is the Independent Electoral Commission of Nigeria, and APC recants. And then The Nation also from Nigeria, NNPCL marketers differ over lingering petrol scarcity. The Daily News from Zimbabwe, authorities bid to cut poverty rates as Motuli moves to further steady prices inflation in 2023 budget. They're in Zimbabwe. Newsday, this one is from Zimbabwe as well. Money printing fears abound. Okay, those are some of the things that made the Zimbabwean currency to just lose its value. So I don't know, they want to print more money as government turns to treasury bills, bonds. I don't know. Anyway, New Vision from Uganda, companies rush for 25 trillion Uganda shillings oil deals. The Citizen from Tanzania, crash findings, same difference. And that is what we have on some of the leading newspapers from the continent this morning. Just a few of them are regional newspapers. So before we get into looking at what stood out for us and what made headlines during this week, let me just bring us up to date with some news items from across the continent. And we start with some news from Sudan. 13 people were killed and 12 others are reported missing following fierce fighting between two rival factions of the rebel Sudanese Liberation Movement NUR group in Central Darfur State, Western Sudan, the UN has said. In a statement issued on Thursday, the UN humanitarian agency OCHA in Sudan said the clashes started on the 19th of November in the Umo and Ashi areas of Shamal Jebel Mara locality. 6 people abducted and 4 others wounded, privately owned Al Intibaha news site has reported. Now, the fighting later spread to the villages of Daya, Wara, and Care in the same locality, with an estimated 5,600 people reportedly fleeing their homes and moving to displaced people's camps. OCHA said the situation remains tense as there are reports that both parties are mobilizing their forces for fresh attacks, and that is according to the UN. In October, similar clashes between the two groups left at least 13 people killed and 15 others wounded. SLM-NUR is one of the new rebel groups that did not sign the 2020 Juba peace agreement, which the government signed with former rebel groups in Darfur and southern regions. There has been division within SLM-NUR in recent months as some factions have defected. The chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court says he wants to launch proceedings against the Ugandan rebel leader Joseph Kony. This is the first time the prosecutor's office has sought a hearing to confirm charges in a suspect's absence. An arrest warrant was issued for the leader of the Lord's Resistance Army 17 years ago on 33 counts of war crimes and crimes against humanity. The LRA launched a rebellion in Uganda in the 1990s, killing, mutilating and abducting people, especially children. Mr. Kony's whereabouts are unclear, but the LRA has been active in Sudan and the Central African Republic. And some latest updates from the conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The M23 rebels in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo has said that a ceasefire supposed to take hold on Friday evening does not concern the group. They called on the Democratic Republic of Congo's government for direct dialogue. The rebel spokesperson Lawrence Kanyuka said that as they had no representatives at Wednesday's mini-summit in the Angolan capital Luanda, they were not included in their accord. The signatories from Rwanda, the DR Congo, Angola and Burundi said that they're under cessation of hostilities if the rebels do not withdraw from the area. An East African regional force would attack their positions. Kinshasa has refused to engage with the M23, calling them terrorists. Democratic Republic of Congo accuses Rwanda of backing the rebels who have been advancing on the regional capital. Goma, Rwanda has since denied their involvement. African Union mediators are visiting Ethiopia's war-devastated Tigray region in the latest effort to implement a peace deal signed by the federal government and the Tigray's People's Liberation Front (TPLF). Nigeria's former President Olusegun Obasanjo and South Africa's former Deputy President Phumzile Mlambo Ngcuka are in the regional capital Mekelle for talks with the TPLF leaders. This is their first visit to Mekelle since the peace deal was signed on the 2nd of November. Little food, medication and other essentials have reached Tigray, despite Mr. Obasanjo saying on 12th November that aid should have gone in as soon as yesterday. The region has been under a government blockade since the war started more than 2 years ago. Some researchers estimate that famine, a lack of health care, and fighting has caused the deaths of more than 300,000 civilians. Another major issue is the disarmament of the Tigrayan forces and the withdrawal of Eritrean forces deployed to bolster the federal government fighting the TPLF. The U.S., which had observer status during the peace talks, has called for this to happen concurrently. A senior figure in the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front has told the BBC News that the rebel group is ready to address political problems in a peaceful and political manner. Getachew Reda was speaking to the TPLF as the TPLF and Ethiopia's federal government are working out the implementation of a deal signed earlier this month and ending hostilities in the 2-year-long civil war. Talking to the Hard Talk program, Stephen Sakur from the city of Mekelle in Ethiopia's northern Tigray region, Mr. Getachew said that the TPLF will be willing to hand over heavy weapons and heavy armaments as long as the security interests of Tigray are taken care of. and the conflict has led to thousands of deaths and humanitarian crisis in the north part of the country. The Ethiopian government and representatives of the TPLF signed up a disarmament plan and commitment to restore services to the region. The plan should allow aid to reach millions in urgent need of assistance. In August, the World Food Programme said more than 5 million people in the region faced severe hunger. More than 5,700 schools have been closed in Burkina Faso due to the security situation marked by jihadist attacks, depriving 1 million students of access to education, the NGO said. The children warned on Wednesday. Since 2017, armed Islamic groups have targeted teachers and schools in Burkina Faso, citing their opposition to Western education and government institutions. According to the Ministry of Education, more than 28,000 teachers are also affected by school closures. For more than 7 years, civilians and soldiers in Burkina Faso have been regularly plunged into mourning by increasingly frequent jihadist attacks, particularly in the north and the east, which have killed thousands and forced some 2 million people to flee their homes. Captain Ibrahim Traore, who led a military coup on September 30th against Lieutenant Colonel Paul Henry Sandaogo Damiba, was appointed transitional president by the Constitutional Council on October 21st and has set himself the goal of recapturing the territories occupied by the terrorist hordes. This is the second coup in Burkina Faso in 8 months, and each time the coup plotters cite the deteriorating security situation. An attack by suspected Islamic extremists on a camp outside Gao, sheltering individuals who had fled violence in northern Mali, has left 11 people dead, officials confirmed on Thursday. The assailants also destroyed the camp's food stocks and stole the livestock. Former Gao Mayor Sado Diallo has confirmed. The UN confirmed Monday's attack in a statement, although authorities in the Gao region have not yet reported it. The attack near Gao came amid growing fears about extremist violence in Mali following the departure of French forces earlier this year after 9 years of helping fight militants in the West African country. France's departure came amid deteriorating relations with Colonel Assimi Goïta, who seized power in Mali 2 years ago. Goïta has been increasingly isolated from Mali's one-time international partner. The UK recently announced it will be withdrawing 300 peacekeepers from Mali, saying the country's growing reliance